Hey everyone, Dave here. Welcome back for another video. Today, more of just like a blog type thing than anything else, I guess. Really just wanted to sit back and take stock on the interview I had with Rocket Lab's CEO Peter Beck and CFO Adam Spice. As I'm sure many of you are aware, had amazing reception and tons of great comments. So thank you everyone who left a note down in the comments congratulating me or talking about the interview. I just figured I would share a quick video of my thoughts from the interview, some takeaways I had, how I was feeling afterwards about the stock, and just about the YouTube channel as well, to be frank. Before we talk about that, I did need to thank, we had 4 new channel members in the last 3 days. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for joining. We had Russell, who I know has been around for a while and has given me super chats previously. That's always much appreciated as well. Cameron, Shaden, and Bryce. Thank you guys for joining the channel members. It has grown remarkably over just the past 30 days, and it's very much appreciated. Yeah, to be honest, was a little stressed out before the interview and just been preparing for that for a while, so I felt like I needed more than anything just a low-key, casual video to follow it up, and something that didn't require a lot of research or stress, and this seemed like a good idea to me. If you haven't subscribed and you do find my content interesting, please do consider hitting that subscribe button. I promise usually I have a little bit more to share presentation-wise than I do today. But anyway, just some thoughts about the interview. First of all, Peter and Adam were amazing. They were extremely nice. Even before the recording part started going, they just seemed, completely down to earth and very nice guys, and they weren't too worried about anything. I didn't get any questions denied. I had a lot of questions that I didn't end up getting to. I had a very long list, and I didn't really have a good sense of how long it would take for each of those questions to be answered. You never know, right? Someone could go off talking on a single question for 20 minutes, or they might just give you one sentence and be done. So I had a long list of stuff I didn't get to. I kind of realized that partway through it wasn't going to make it through a lot of them, and tried to pivot and ask some of the more important ones for valuing the company and that kind of thing later on. Hopefully we got to enough of those that you guys found them valuable. And yeah, big picture takeaways from the interview is that Peter Beck, I still think is absolutely the real deal, extremely smart when it comes to engineering, just knows the whole industry. Very impressed with him, have been for a long time. I think when you're investing, especially in a space company, especially in a smaller company, which I guess Rocket Lab technically still is when you're talking about publicly traded companies, CEO is even more important. When you're talking about the CEO of, say, a bank, I think, you might be okay without, just an average CEO. If it's a solid bank, you'll be fine and get your dividends. But when you're talking about a company like Rocket Lab, you really need a guy who knows what he's talking about and has a great vision. And Peter Beck, to me, is that. I look around companies in the space industry, and I find the ones that succeed are the ones with CEOs that have a ton of technical knowledge, not just the business knowledge. So obviously SpaceX, Elon designing or engineering a lot of the rockets, chief engineer on that. Rocket Lab's Peter Beck, very similar, and there's some others in the industry as well who are clearly very smart and technically knowledgeable. And I think if you pick out them, you're more likely to do well versus someone who's kind of more of a business background but doesn't really understand the technology so well and can't really just push the teams and the engineers to get these projects done and have the larger vision of what is possible. Talking about Neutron, most of the concerns I had previously heard, I thought were addressed well. So I've heard some people thinking that maybe it couldn't be stretched out if they wanted to with block upgrades. They do have a straight section of tank, he did confirm, so that could be stretched relatively easy. Also said that, yeah, even though those electrons are handling the water very well, you don't want to have to deal with that when it comes to the neutron fairings, because I had heard previously as well that is there really that much of a benefit to keeping them if it turns out the carbon handles the water pretty well? So I thought that was a good answer as well. And it was really just the most striking that he has no worries at all when it comes to demand. He is incredibly confident the demand is there for the rocket. He must know things, right? Like, I'm sure he's talking to potential customers and he knows the demand is there. It's not like he's just hoping the demand will materialize. He knows. So that came through to me. I don't have a lot of worries about Neutron right now. Obviously, we want to see the Archimedes hot fire, but we saw some great pictures and good progress on that. Did hear that the Neutron margin curve should be much sharper in rising than Electron. We know Electron, the small rocket, tougher margins on those vehicles. It takes like 20 plus to get to that 50% gross margin profile. That's launches per year. Neutron sounds like they should be able to do it in much less, so that's another thing they don't really have to worry about, trying to find as many customers for it. Plus, down the line, they're going to be launching 50% of their own payloads too, so that's demand that's already guaranteed to be there for Neutron. We talked a lot about the space systems business. I remain very bullish on it. The growth has been amazing on space systems. SDA is here to stay. It's a low Earth orbit constellation, means it's going to need to be constantly replenished every 5+ years or so. It's a new paradigm in the space industry, and I just loved what he said, talking about how Raytheon is giving up on the prime business. Meanwhile, Rocket Lab's moving in. These old school cost plus companies can't compete with the fixed cost contracts that Rocket Lab is willing to offer and guarantee and has been delivering on already. The inflection point for the space industry is here, and Rocket Lab is really driving that forward. I do really think like we're going to see a lot of growth in the future on the space system side. Plus, Adam did mention that it's not as capital intensive to scale that business larger, so should be a bit easier if they do get more contracts for, future SDA tranches, future constellations for other people and stuff like that. Yeah, I wish I could have asked about the acquisitions, but that's always a tough one because they're not going to give you a firm answer. It's not like they're going to sit here and say, this is who we want to acquire. That just wouldn't happen. So what you can ask about that without asking the obvious question they're not going to answer is pretty tough. And that's a problem I had thinking about the overall interview, is like everything I'd love to know, they can't answer and they shouldn't answer, because if they're telling their competition what they're going for, that will work against them. Like, obviously I'd love to know what they're thinking for their own constellation down the line. There's no way in hell he's going to answer that question, so no point in even asking. A few other questions I was thinking about asking is one, the ITAR issues with Neutron, whether that's been any issues in terms of security clearance. There's very strict rules around rocket technology leaving the United States, and for good reason. So sometimes they would have issues with New Zealanders working on Neutron because they're outside of the United States. They can't really share that kind of highly sensitive information to countries outside of the United States. That's always been a little bit of an issue for Rocket Lab. So I was curious about how that played into Neutron development. I was curious if they would confirm whether there was a customer payload on the first Neutron launch. And I did have a whole section where I wanted to talk to them a little bit about the markets, the public markets, the private markets, as it pertains to the space industry and valuations of different companies. I thought that could have been a fascinating conversation, but there just wasn't time. So I was thinking about asking Peter, first of all, just like how it's been for him running a publicly traded company for the first time. He's been doing it a few years now, so I figured he'd have some interesting stories or answers there. And then also, I really feel if you look at the public markets versus the private markets are still funding almost anyone with an idea. I mean, it's not quite the same as it used to be, but we're still seeing pretty lofty valuations for companies on the private side of things. Like, you've got a Relativity looking at raising another $1 billion at a valuation that I believe is probably over twice Rocket Lab's valuation right now, and that's just a pure rocket company without any of the other pluses like space systems that Rocket Lab has. And there's a lot of other companies on the private side that are raising capital, so I just was curious if they would comment on why we have this mismatch and the public markets are treating space companies very roughly lately, and if they think that might change. Yeah, a few other questions I had in mind we didn't get to, but the amazing thing is he was kind of saying that they we're thinking about doing this sort of thing going forward on a semi-regular basis. And I think what this goes to show is that, like, it's recognized now how powerful a force retail investors can be, how we can be powerful together, and how important we can be. I mean, you saw it with GameStop bringing down massive investment firms. And it's real now that retail investors are have the tools like this to communicate, to talk to each other and share ideas. We are a force that should be thought about and reckoned with, and you shouldn't ignore us. So they seem to recognize that, and they're doing a good job of reaching out and communicating and sharing information with the retail investment community, which is amazing. And it goes to show, like, all of us who really follow the company and support it, if we weren't here, obviously they wouldn't be doing interviews like this. So yeah, I think that's absolutely great. I loved the comments. As I said previously, I got a bunch of super chats in that last video. It was a little overwhelming, and it was, the top performing video on the channel by far. Not a huge surprise on that, but it really just felt like, hitting a bit of a milestone for the channel. And, I hope the best is still yet to come. It's a very exciting time. The channel has been growing quite rapidly. With this previous video, I received 400 new subscribers over the past month. To put that in context, my first year running the channel, that probably would have taken me 8 months. Like, it's crazy. So very tough getting started and starting to get the ball rolling, but I do feel like the ball is starting to roll now, which is very exciting. And want to thank you guys for watching, because obviously that's why this is happening. So end of the day, I walked away from this interview feeling more bullish about Rocket Lab than ever, wanting to add more shares. I saw a lot of commenters saying they did add more shares. I don't know if we had anything to do with the stock being green the next day. I like to think we had at least a small part to do with that, moving the stock. It'd be pretty amazing to see if we could collectively move the stock even a few cents ourselves. That'd be pretty exciting, I think. Feeling very good about the company, about Neutron, about space systems, about electron reusability. There's not a lot that I'm worried about with them right now, especially with that additional $300 million on the balance sheet. I'm just feeling good about the investment. So those were my takeaways from the interview. Let me know how you felt about it. Thank you guys so much for supporting. As I said previously, I wouldn't have gotten it if it wasn't for you. And really excited for what the channel holds in the future. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. I've got some good ones lined up, I think. Hopefully I don't flood you with a little too many of them, but I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.